great day. I'm Monique Odom, Director of Metro Parks and Recreation, and I'd like to welcome my podium guests here and those of you viewing this event on Facebook Live. Things have changed significantly since we were here back in January. But one thing that didn't change was our commitment to this community and to this park. There are some other folks here on our Metro team who were just as committed and enthusiastic. Several city departments collaborated to make this space a recreational option for both new and old residents in this area. It was initially developed by Metro Water Services to detain stormwater in underground cisterns. Metro Parks funded the park design. Construction was funded by the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency through a community development grant, and the Metro Arts Commission will assist the community in developing a mural program on the newest expression wall, and the Metro Historical Commission helped develop historical signage with local historians from TSU, Fisk, and the Tennessee Historical Commission. Thank you to all of you. Let's give them a hand, please. As you know, 2020 has been unlike any other year. It will be unique in the annals of history. So, we wanted to make sure that we memorialize this park and this year in a special way. So we've invited each of our podium guests to fill our time capsule with items that memorialize the park and or year. The items that will be put in our time capsule today will be buried in this park, and will be buried in a few days to be open in November of 2030. So I will kick it off. For Metro Parks, I have two items to include in the time capsule. The first is a Metro Parks lapel pin. It's here on the table and it's similar to the one that I am wearing here. This pin represents all the hard-working parks employees who go above and beyond every day to make this and all of our parks some of the best green spaces in the nation. My second item is a poster that many of you out there have seen on our greenways that remind us to be physically distant while we are socially connected, and it's here on the table. So with that, I'd like to call Mr. Ricky Swift from Metro Water to the podium. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Ricky Swift with Metro Water Services. In particular, I am the program manager for stormwater maintenance. So basically what we do is we deal with flooding and drainage issues across the county. That's kind of what got the ball rolling for what's going on here today. Several years ago, a rain event took place. Got a call from our director, Scott Potter, saying right after Jefferson Street there's some flooding going on. It wasn't raining that bad, but when water has nowhere to go, it doesn't take much. So I came out, there's 3 lanes of traffic out here. Both outside lanes were completely flooded, and the only way people could get by right here was using the middle lane. So we had a little game with chicken going on. So what took place after that was that we got with our engineering firms and designed a project. Worked along with Councilmember O'Connell, Councilmember Hurd, Council Lady Gilmore, and Jump, and we came up with a game plan to help resolve these issues. But where do you send the water? Matt Tays, one of our engineers with stormwater, he was out here and saw a piece of land for sale. We were able to purchase that land. And if you were able to look underground right now, it's a huge underground chamber, tall enough for you to stand around and walk around in. And when it rains, this is where all the water goes. So we're able to do a project. We spent between $5 and $6 million upgrading the stormwater system, water lines, sanitary lines, and even threw in some sidewalks. So it was great to get done. We finished up. I got a call from Council Lady Gilmore, and she said, "Ricky, what are we going to do with that land?" I said, "Well, it's going to seed it to be nice and green." And she said, "Well, Ricky, that's a great place for a park, something commemorating the civil rights movements or some of the great African Americans in the area, one of the great institutions." And I said, "Hey, great idea." I went back, spoke with Director Scott Potter. He was all on board for it. I went over and spoke with then Director Tommy Lynch of Parks, who got very excited, said, "Hey, this is something Parks can definitely stand behind." With that same energy carried over to our now Director of Parks, Monique Odom that kept this thing going that brought us to where we are here today. So it's rare for us to do a project that one solves a drainage or flooding issue, and then in the end turns out to be something to commemorate someone like Mr. Gardner, who is such an innovative entrepreneur within a community. So on behalf of the department, just want to say we're very excited, we're very happy. We're so proud of this thing taking place, and everybody within our department, Director Scott Potter, Assistant Director Tom Palco, Felicia Page, Renee Jackson, Matt Tays. This has been, it's just wonderful for us to be able to be a part of something like this. For the Time Capsule, what we have is information regarding the project, how we all got here, information about the underground chambers that are here underground, and there will also be a rain gauge because we can measure the rain that doesn't fall here anymore. So that's it. Next up, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of Metro Arts Commission, Caroline Vincent.
Good morning, everyone. Metro Arts is thrilled to help support this project and a unique opportunity to provide public art to the visitors of this park, to invest in North Nashville artists, and to reflect this community. The long wall that you see over here is serving as a barrier between the park and I-40. Will provide an artistic focal point and a gathering place. 70 feet of this wall will serve as a community canvas, a space for rotating temporary public artworks. For the inaugural installation, Metro Arts is convening a panel of North Nashville artists, community members, to advise on the development of the project. We hope to have the first artwork ready for dedication in the spring of 2021. So our contributions today to the Time Capsule also reflect artists and public artwork that has happened in North Nashville in recent years. We have a market bag from Satu Jones's project at the Farmers Market called Turnip Greens, a postcard featuring Adonity, which is a mural that is also at the Farmers Market. We have the notable North Nashville coloring book that artist Alicia Morozic created this year, and her shop is right across the street. We also have a Build Better Tables catalog that was from a 2018 exhibition that we did in North Nashville and East Nashville focused on food justice and food access. And then we finally have a fragmented sculpture from artist Marlos Avon, who works with the Magruder Social Artist Residency nearby. So we look forward to the beautiful art that will enhance this space, and we look forward to working with the community to create art that can be enjoyed for years to come. So I think I'll go back and introduce James Harbison from MDHA.
Good morning. It's just a privilege to be here, and this is a great example of what happens when everyone comes together. MDHA is delighted to be here and be part of today's grand opening celebration. We had an important but mainly administrative role, so I'd like to thank the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, who provides to the city, to our mayor, community development block grants, which he in turn asked us to administer. So we were very excited to administer and provide $850,000 for the construction here, but these are city funds from the federal government, not exactly MDHA funds. But MDHA, as you know, has a D in its name. Our housing is our core mission of our 13,000 families of low income that we house every day. But this is the type of development project that we just love. We get to work with Caroline, we get to work with Metro Water, our friends Monique and Tommy before that, to bring something to the families here. I cannot wait to come by here and see kids and families playing on this playground. And what a creative engineering solution to a water drainage problem. My hats off to Scott Potter and all the folks from Stormwater. What a tremendous collaboration, and we're just honored to be part of it. Our contribution to the Time Capsule is one of our annual reports, which features many of the dedications and the mixed income developments that we're working on behalf of the city, and includes the grand opening of 10th and Jefferson, just down the street, a mixed income community. Affordable and workforce residential development just down the street. So in sum, thank you very much. It's an honor to have participated, and this is just going to be great to watch these young families play here. And I think following me in the podium is Sharon. So I'm pleased to introduce my great friend Sharon Hurd. Anyone that knows Jefferson Street knows Sharon.
Good morning. When I think of Kossie Gardner Sr., I think of a quote that says, "The goal isn't to live forever, it is to create something that will." Mr. Gardner created in this community was the audacity to dream. And he taught his children to dream. And they taught their children to dream. While teaching them, others learned. He carved a legacy in the hearts and minds of so many business owners and entrepreneurs and gave them the audacity to dream. He carved in the heart of this community a legacy that will never be forgotten. In his infinite vision was to create a legacy and preserve the history which is absolutely necessary this day for this community. Creating the Gold Coast community. I have a gold medal to represent that creation, for you know that he was also our very own Olympic champion. Then I have a DVD of the Gateway to Heritage. That was a dream that I had and able to see to fruition. So I am grateful to Mr. Gardner and to his descendants, Keisha, for having the vision and the audacity to hope. Jefferson Street is grateful to have had a magnificent dreamer who taught us how to dream. I now will introduce one of those who was a dreamer because of Mr. Gardner, the Honorable Dr. Richard Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for that gracious introduction. I didn't know you were going to introduce me. If so, I would have given you a little more to say. To the mayor, to the elected representatives, to the individuals here on the platform, thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. At the age of 16, which is 60 years ago next month, I had the privilege of being named the understudy of K. Gardner Sr. Can you imagine? It was in the Banner newspaper, 1960 in December. I wish I'd have kept that paper, but I didn't. Then again, at the age of 39, it was Mr. K. Gardner Sr. who came with me to buy a funeral home at auction. I failed to tell you that I became Mr. Gardner's understudy because my father had died, my mother had sold her funeral home, and Mr. Gardner thought it was something good, I guess, in me to become his understudy. Again, 23 years later, on June the 9th, 1983, it was Mr. K. Gardner Sr. that accompanied me to buy at auction the same funeral home that my mother had sold. Mr. Gardner was truly one of my mentors, and I could never honor Mr. K. Gardner Sr. without at least reminding you all of another mentor of mine who was Harold Love Sr. I think as a mentor, he truly allowed his genes to be encapsulated in his granddaughter, whom I knew before she was born. This has been a great occasion, and I think I heard Sharon Hurt speak of the Gold Coast. Well, I want to also remind her that right down the street from the Gold Coast, a cemetery was established in 1958 by Mr. K. Gardner. It is now known as the Hills of Calvary Cemetery. Some of you would like to know, how do I know that? Well, my father was in the car with Mr. K. Gardner Sr. when Mr. K. Gardner Sr. was considering opening that cemetery, and he offered my father an opportunity, but my father could not see through the trees for some reason, and he did not accompany him. But Keisha, you should be proud to follow in your grandfather's footsteps by keeping that cemetery going. Now everybody was asked to bring an item to put in the capsule. Well, my item is laying right here on this table that will go in the capsule. Some people would like to know exactly what is in it, Helen. Now, I'm not going to tell them. I'll be around 10 more years from now, and by that time I'll be 86 years old, and I'll pull it out, and then you all can read it. Let me just tell you one more thing about K. Gardner Sr. that most people around here now, I don't think there's anybody old enough. He would ride in his car down Jefferson Street. And when people were standing at the bus stop and they needed a ride downtown, it was K. Gardner Sr. who gave them a ride downtown. He was a gracious individual. He made a lot of contributions, and we should never, ever forget the legacy of K. Gardner Sr. Now, thank you. It is now my time to bring whom I call the mastermind of this particular occasion, the daughter, the granddaughter of K. Gardner Sr., Mrs. Keisha Gardner Beard.
Y'all, this is amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is my little brother, Kossie Gardner III. We are here on behalf of the children of K. Gardner Sr., who is Babe, Mary, and Kossie Jr., who's our daddy. All of the grandchildren and all of the great-grandchildren. Yeah. We are so humble and so honored for this occasion, and we want to thank the parks and MDHA and water and everybody for this opportunity. We're so humble that this is going to be here forever, and for the future, for these kids to understand and learn what it takes to really keep pushing through everything that we're going through, even like what we're going through right now. And we've got to come together and help each other. And that's what Granddaddy was really all about. He was about helping everybody and as much as he could help. And I just want to say thank you so much for this. And my little brother. Thank y'all. Now it's honor here for
for me, I'm supposed to invite Mr. Freddie O'Connell here. Come on, Mr. Freddie. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm putting in the capsule. This is the funeral home, what it used to look like on Jefferson Street. And that house is still in this building. It's still in this building.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Freddie O'Connell, and I have the privilege and honor of representing District 19 on the Metro Council where we are standing. I've done this since September of 2015, and in December of that year, just a few months after I had taken office, Metro Water Services reached out to me regarding proposed stormwater improvements to this stretch of Jefferson Street, which was welcome news because this was long-needed improvements to a portion of Jefferson that had become dangerous and frankly embarrassing with the neglect to infrastructure. We learned that part of the improvements involved underground retention on this land right here acquired by Metro. And at one of the community meetings we had, where Ricky Swift had kind of helped us organize things, I asked what the plans were for the land. There were none at that time. And soon I was working collaboratively with then Councilmember Gilmore and Councilmember Hurt, who you've heard from this morning, on ideas for a pocket park that could grow from this site. And Ricky Swift helped our little snowball roll. So we started working with multiple stakeholders. A few months into the planning process, Keisha showed up to a meeting, and I believe it was the Carl Van Vechten Galleries at Fisk. And she had an idea for what to name the park. And we know that story now. This wasn't just a lark, though. She had come prepared with all of these artifacts of family legacy. And it was an amazing collection of materials about the business owners on a vibrant corridor. So I introduced her to Tim Netsch, and well, here we are. Keisha had a vision, and now 5 years later, we are gathered for the grand opening of the first Metro Park on Jefferson Street, which will celebrate one of Nashville's most important corridors, its business legacy, and its civil rights importance. And you can see how many stakeholders it took to deliver this. I know Ms. Perry can't be here this morning, but I can't think of a more fitting item to put in the time capsule than the current issue of the Tennessee Tribune, whose offices look out onto the park from across Jefferson Street. So thank you to everyone involved in making this possible, and it's now my pleasure to introduce our mayor, John Cooper.
Thank you, Freddie. So grateful to be here, and thank you, Keisha, for your inspiration in naming this park. And it's great to see Karen Johnson and Representative Love and Sharon Hurt, and thank her for her great words. Want to recognize Council Lady Gilmore, who took a part in this. And then when the era of masks, it's hard for me to see who all is here. Is Brenda Taylor here, our adjacent council member? But our great partners on the council. And let's recognize parks, MDHA, Water, and the Arts Commission, a joint work here in getting this park done. A park, a welcoming presence. Now, especially a pocket park in the heart of a neighborhood brings a city together. Now, I'm so grateful to Keisha and her idea to rename this park, which we had called the Jefferson Street Pocket Park. Now, this is a much better name, but to honor the funeral home and her grandfather, which stood just feet from here. But we're here to celebrate a legacy, the way a name can inspire other people when it belongs to a man like Kossie Gardner, Keisha's granddad. Now, Mr. Gardner was born on May the 24th, 1897 in Pulaski, Tennessee. And he was born as Carthagerius Cosby. You may have to help me. Carthagerius Cosby. And as a baby, his mother, because of economic circumstance, had to indenture Carthagerius to be a farmer's apprentice. And that's how his name came to be changed. He took the last name of his apprentice and surrogate father, Daniel Gardner. And later in life, Mr. Gardner, Kossie Gardner, described his surrogate parents as wonderful. Now, the first person in Mr. Gardner's care as an undertaker was his great uncle, Peter Hayden. Mr. Hayden's family had sent Kossie to get the mortician at another funeral home. Instead, Kossie Gardner borrowed a friend's car, hired an embalmer, and then got a $500 bank loan to pay for mortuary licenses and a casket. He paid $25 a month to rent a 12 by 15-foot room at the Nashville YMCA on Cedar Street, where he kept the bodies of those in his care behind a partition to separate them from the front office. He had hinges put on the back seat of a 1922 model Hudson sedan, which he used as the funeral home ambulance. And Mr. Gardner would describe how he would rattle up and down the street in that thing. And that was in his early 20s. By the time he retired, Mr. Gardner's funeral home had become an institution on the 1600 block of Jefferson Street. For 14 years, he did a live radio show from the funeral home from WNAH. He rebuilt the Black Masonic building on 4th Avenue and developed the Gold Coast, Nashville's first black subdivision. He owned 3 farms, 3 vocational schools, and a restaurant. And he did all of this under the shadow of grim Jim Crow. In a society that made it the hardest on him, he marched steadily on to success again and again. He marched to excellence, and his achievement was not about business alone. At a time when white-owned funeral homes and cemeteries denied black people a place to mourn and honor their dead, Mr. Gardner made that possible. When Sister Lucille from the Fairfield Missionary Baptist Church asked for help with materials to build a new church, Mr. Gardner did not think of profit. He gave her enough bricks to make the front of the building. And when neighbors needed a car, Mr. Gardner would give them one from the funeral home. When Dr. Matthew Walker III needed rides for his patients, Mr. Gardner would pick them up and drive them to the hospital in one of the funeral home vehicles. And Mr. Gardner himself drove until he was 88 years old. And in March of 1990, at the age of 92, Mr. Gardner died and was buried in the hills of Calvary Cemetery, which he had helped found. Now, at that time, he was survived by his wife, Eleanor. She died at age 97, 7 years after her husband. His son, Kossie, who had graduated from Fisk University, become a well-known organist for jazz, gospel, country, and disco music, and he died in 2009. His daughter, Mary Gardner Lopez, who died around 1990, 5 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Now, earlier, I said today that we're celebrating 2 things, a park and a person. Today, we think about the type of future Mr. Gardner's legacy inspires for the community he loved, and we recommit to doing that work. We know what happened when the 1956 Interstate Highway Act brought I-40 through here. It bifurcated our town and choked neighborhoods off. We know the history, and yet standing here, let us sense opportunity. We can do what Mr. Gardner once did. Let's look at what is possible today, just right here, with donated land from Metro Water Services, federal dollars from the Metro Development and Housing, and support from the Metro Historic Commission and Metro Arts. We can see opportunities, but we have to work together to make it work for the community. Nashville needs Jefferson Street. Where else in America do you find 3 HBCUs and 77 churches? This is our country's Main Street. And we need Jefferson Street to be the central, most energetic part of Music City like it was in the 1940s. The spot for jazz and blues and R&B places like Club Baron, Del Morocco, Sugar Hill, Deborah's Casino Royale, and Ebony Circle. We need Jefferson Street to sing again. And that will take all of us today and all of the organizations today to recommit to the next phase of our city. Now, I'll tell you, I brought a mask and a poster about social distancing. These are not my favorite items, but they're going to let everybody know what the year 2020 was all about in the future. And when this capsule is unearthed, these artifacts won't represent crisis. They will speak to how we got through this together. The resilience and compassion that I've seen this year is an example of strength and dignity that our grandparents set for us. And it's an example that we now give to all of our children. And I want this to be the year that teaches us to be more urgent about our opportunity to make Nashville a city that works for everyone, about grabbing a hold of that opportunity together. And I'm happy for today's grand opening. I want to thank the Gardner family for sharing the legacy of Mr. Kossie Gardner Sr. And when our grandchildren unearth this capsule, let them say, we did what was promised. We got it right in Jefferson Street, and we did it together. And with this, Monique and the Parks Department and MDHA and the Arts Commission, the council members that made this possible, and those of us who benefit from the legacy of great men like Mr. Gardner Sr. Again, I guess at this moment I'd like to declare the park to be open and put the capsule in place there. I don't think there'll be a ribbon to cut in this socially distanced environment, and let's go forward and be inspired by what has happened here on this site of everybody working together to create a brighter future for our city. Thank you very much.
The park is open, everybody. Thank you.